Hello, everybody. Scott Golden with Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel. I don't normally do opinion pieces or anything like that, but today I'm going to do it because there is a plague within the professional wrestling industry that's been around longer than I was involved with it. So it goes back probably to the dawn of the television age in the 1950s, if not before it. And that is the sexual misconduct and the overall intimidation of men, women, athletes, individuals involved in the business, the mind control and manipulation that exists. Over the last several days, there have been literally dozens of people accused of everything from rape to sexual assault to mental and emotional abuse and other things. I want to weigh in on this topic. It's going to be a reasonably emotional um, audio. Please like, subscribe, comment if you've been affected by this or you know someone that has. Uh, it is a derivation from the normal content on the channel, and if you do have abuse history or trigger warnings, please probably not the best audio to listen to if you have sensitivities that you are aware of, or you think you may have some sensitivities that you're aware or that you're affected by. Okay, full disclosure, I never was the victim of any sort of impropriety in professional wrestling other than social ostracization and verbal bullying. Okay, to be completely honest, um, I didn't get into the sexual side of things, although I was propositioned a couple of times. Also, full disclosure, I am a sexual, mental, and emotional abuse and physical abuse survivor. I was sold into sexual trade as a child by members of my biological family. That's why my name is no longer associated with my family. I've changed my name for online purposes and will be doing so legally once I have the finances to do so. That being stated, this isn't about me. This is about the plague within the professional wrestling industry, and I want to weigh in on it. As a result of my own personal journey to recovery, I have dedicated my life to helping people that have been through trauma for the last 23 years, since I was 15 years old when I started to go on my own recovery journey. I've studied how the brain works, what happens when there's trauma, how to counteract trauma, what can happen to the way the brain sees things, deals with things, what it does to your emotional state, what it does to your mental health, what it does to how you relate with others, and a whole bunch of other things. I've spent 23 years of my life dealing with this, and I am completely willing to say, while I would consider myself 90% recovered, I still have PTSD and other challenges because of what I've been through. And so if there are talents out there listening, people in the entertainment industry in general, because it happens everywhere, but it's being spotlighted in pro wrestling, that's why I'm speaking out on it. Um, if you're going through that, I want to offer to you my services. You can get in touch with me on Twitter at PO Perception, or here on YouTube, just in the message box, or comment if you want to leave an email in the comment box if you're comfortable doing that. I will offer services to anyone who's in that industry, any form of entertainment, who has experienced discrimination, sexual impropriety, bullying, all of that, if you're in that industry, because there is shaming that goes along with it, and you do lose many times bookings, notoriety, opportunities, chances, and all sorts of other things. Um, so, as someone who had been through sexual exploitation prior to my involvement with pro wrestling, um, when I saw the amount of bullying, when I saw the amount of social ostracization, especially for female talents, but there's also a lot of homophobia that I think goes understated in pro wrestling. I can't tell you the number of times I've seen local talent, national talent, individuals from all different levels, from legends to the local wrestling school student, make homophobic or sexually suggestive jokes and improprieties while in the confines of a wrestling locker room or before an event, after an event. I would say if it didn't happen within the course of an event at least 10 times during the day, that was a good day. And for frame of reference, my time in the sport was 2000. I'm sorry, was 1997 through 2009. I have friends who work for right now four of the national companies. Individuals who I guess I would consider friends because I had interaction with them. However, another part of the business that a lot of people don't acknowledge and undervalue is the fact that once you're out of the business, you're ignored. You might, if you're lucky, make five friends in the sport of pro wrestling during your time in it that even keep your phone number after you retire. You might make that. And that's when you consider yourself lucky. As for me, there are a couple of mentors I have that I could turn to right now, and I'm pretty sure they'd return an email. But for 98% of the people I was involved in the business with for 12 years, if they saw me on the street, they'd, hey, brother, good to see you, blah, blah, blah. But they don't acknowledge you. And for folks who think that they want to treat wrestling like a family, yeah, it is. It's mafia-esque. When you're in, they treat you like you matter. They treat you like you count. The minute you're out, you don't matter anymore. Now, you don't get jumped out like a gang, but that same ostracization once you leave, be it retirement, injury, or personal challenges, is there. It's present, and it's very real. As far as sexual impropriety, abusive stuff, man, it's rampant. At the independent level, at the national level, it's everywhere. I've heard stories from friends of mine that have no reason to lie to me about losing pushes, losing opportunities because they wouldn't sleep with certain people. I've heard bullying, people getting defecated on, urinated on, things that, homophobia, xenophobia, all sorts of things. As far as things I've witnessed, I'll get there in a second. But I've heard everything, and no organization is exempt from this. What I mean by that is, look, the wrestling business attracts a certain type of person. The type of person that business attracts is an individual who has a propensity to seek attention more than the average individual, right? Think about it. You go out there in a relatively often skimpy outfit. You perform for 10 to 20 minutes. You hope that you get emotion from people. So the likelihood that a person has at least some, on the minor side, mental health quirks, or more extremely, mental illnesses, extremely high. I'd say 70-80%. At the very least, the seeking of attention is a real major problem. So, down to that. Not saying there's anything wrong with these people. Without the business, and I'll be quite honest, it's what got me through my abuse as a child. Without it, I probably would be dead right now. I'm not ragging on the fact that people in this industry have challenges that they deal with that cause them to be part of the sport for various reasons. What I'm saying is social improprieties are more likely in an entertainment-based field because they go in seeking attention more than the average person does. Now, going back, just to be fair, I'm not going to name names. Partially because it becomes a he said, she said thing, and a lot of what happened to me happened 2 decades or more ago, right? And what's the point of talking about something that I don't have text messages to prove, I don't have phone records to prove, I don't have a way to give tangible evidence? The only way that I would name somebody is if I had kept tangible evidence. And to be completely honest, up until about 7 or 8 years ago, I did keep emails of an improper nature, and then I went through an experience where the hard drive I had them on failed, and they were gone, and I didn't feel that spending a few $100s to recover them was worth it. There's nothing else I needed on that hard drive. Anyway, so my experience. There was a promoter in the Northeast area whom was extremely well known in the area, ran dozens of shows a year, was famous. First of all, was bisexual. Not that that matters, but I think it does factor into the story because he made advancements towards both male and female individuals in my presence. He propositioned younger people, people under the age of 18. I was under the age of 18 when I was propositioned. Having gone through sexual abuse and sexual enslavement at the time, this was my first exposure to the fact that it existed in my business, and I can tell you I was completely heartbroken. Number one, that this person who I respected because he'd done things that I wanted to do in terms of being a promoter and all that would do these things, but also I kind of thought going in as a 15-year-old kid that wrestling was more wholesome than it actually wound up being, and it was eye-opening and very shocking, jarring to my system to be propositioned. Because of and in my case, I'm physically disabled. I'm wheelchair bound. For those that don't know, was born with a brain injury, blind in one eye. Been through some stuff, and I do have a coaching channel. If you're interested in that, Golden Opportunities Coaching. If you're interested in that side of my work, anyway. So at the end of the day, this individual whom I never worked for because of this practice, he propositioned me when I asked for work. I had sent back in the days of snail mail, I had sent a letter, and I got a response from one of his assistants. I set up a phone call meeting at which he invited me to go camping with him, which seemed really bizarre to a 15-year-old. I did not go. However, I was told that if I didn't go camping, we could meet up and exchange adult favors for the chance at employment with his company. This was an individual, again, running multiple events a week. Was a great opportunity for someone just breaking into the business. There were people under his employ who probably wouldn't speak out now, but did exchange sexual favors for things like pushes, opportunities at dark matches, and even one guy who did a sexual favor for a championship belt. As in, I got a title run because I did something illicit. At the time, I was smart enough to basically say to this gentleman who was, I don't even know how old he was at this point. I would guess in his late 40s, early 50s. I said to him, "What are you going to pay me?" I just come from that world of exploitation, and I figured, well, if I'm going to do this, you're going to pay for it. Probably not the best idea, but again, having been in a different world, having been through a lot of stuff, I figured I might as well cash in on this. This shocked him. He left it alone. I thought of going public at the time, but was dealing with my own realization of exploitation. Did not go public because by that point, I was afraid. I had mentioned to a couple of friends that I made at the time what had been done, and was told in no uncertain terms that just him. That's what he's done for more than a decade. You either take it or you don't. And that if I said anything, I would be blackballed. And as a young kid, blackballed from a business that I loved did not seem like an enjoyable thing. Fast forward to the mid-2000s, let's say between 2004 and 2007 maybe. I'm doing play-by-play for a reasonably reputable company in the Northeast area. They ran an all-female event, which I supported at the time. I've always been a supporter of women's wrestling. I have often thought it was foolish that women didn't get more notoriety and publicity because my thought was, well, if you want women to show up at the events, why don't you give them compelling women characters? This made sense to my brain, even as in my early 20s, certainly does now at almost 40. But anyway, to be part of such an event was a really cool experience, or so I thought. We show up to the venue. The women were given what I would consider less than adequate dressing arrangements. Now, the venue was not conducive to having the best of locker rooms anyway, but they were given something that was half the size of what the men were given to dress in. There were male athletes who hung outside of the dressing area, almost in a lecherous way. Nobody entered, so nobody did anything illegal, but it was clear that, hey, these guys were certainly hoping to catch a peek or do something illicit that way. So I didn't do anything with that. I go out to do commentary as often I was wont to do. And every time before the event, every time I would go into the locker room, there'd be a group of guys, maybe 4 to 6 guys, and they're off in the corner. And a lot of these women had come from states away, several states away, driven 6, 8 hours, some of them, and they were getting paid subpar wages, as happened at the independent level. I'm going to talk about that before I close the this particular audio as well, because I have very strong feelings about that. And the only reason I haven't run my own shows personally is because I didn't think I could pay the talent what they're worth, their value, instead of this BS lie that, oh, you've got exposure. Here's $10 and a can of Coke and a hot dog. No, if it's a business, treat it like one and pay people appropriately. Anyway, so these ladies, whom many of them I admired, I had studied them to do the best I could for them. Many of them were uncomfortable, and because I treated them like wrestlers who happened to be women, not treating them like women wrestlers. And yes, there is a markable difference. Some of them came up to me and said, some of these guys are being skeevy, and I apologized. I didn't know what to do. Again, I'm in my early to mid 20s at this point. I don't know what to do because I respect the people I'm working for, but they're allowing this hazing to go on. And so I went into the locker room a few times before the event started, and as mentioned, I saw 4 to 6 guys off in a corner talking about what they'd like to do with certain talents sexually. When I stood up for the ladies, I was told that I wasn't welcome in the locker room. I was told a bunch of homophobic and women-hating things by people I considered friends, and it was ridiculous. So go out, we start to do the event, and I'm doing play-by-play, and for whatever reason, somebody in the production side of things made it okay for talent to join me on commentary, which was fine. I dealt with that before, and I'm pretty good at speaking off the cuff, as most of you have learned here on the channel. One thing leads to another, and they start making comments of a suggestive nature during the commentary. And for the next hour and a half, 2 hours, various people, probably half a dozen, a couple of which were the aforementioned perverts from before, would come out and make comments to get me to crack. And so I didn't. I remained professional the entire time. But it was extremely difficult. Here I was, a male in a male-dominated industry who saw what was happening, the objectification, and there was very little I could do. Looking back, I wish I'd been strong enough to quit that day, but I wasn't, and I apologize to anyone that was hurt because I didn't. So Anyway, I finish the broadcast, I put down my microphone, I am angry, I am livid, I am ready to cry. And I go to one of the people in charge of the event and I say, we can't use that commentary. We cannot use any of that because this person did this and this person did that. I went to somebody I respected, somebody I thought who was significantly older than I, who I figured would care about the product, care about doing right business. And the result I got from that conversation was, we'll just do voiceovers, boys will be boys. And that stuck with me. Here's a person I considered in my inner circle. Here's a person I had a lot of respect for. And my respect for them was cut in half. They never treated me badly, but they condoned horrible treatment and horrendous treatment. Looking back, I wish that I hadn't been so deep into my desire to make it, quote, quote, whatever that looks like, that I allowed myself to continue working within that industry and for that person for another couple of years. I would have missed a lot of good experiences, but now the person I am today, I should have walked away. Now, a lot of people are saying a couple of things. I've heard and seen a lot of stuff. Obviously, Twitter's blown up. Other social media avenues have blown up. I've received several direct messages, which I will not disclose identities of people for various reasons, from talents who are seeking help to keep their mental health in check with this whole thing, and it's been an interesting couple of days, to say the very least. People are saying, well, if it's all true, how come they didn't go to the police? Now, here's the thing. And this is where, for some people, this is going to sound like a conspiracy theory, but it's not. It ties in with the Black Lives Matter mentality. For every good cop, there's the potential of a bad cop. For every good judge, there's a potential of a bad judge. Not saying that these industries beget bad people. They do not. However, it's a coin flip. You can go well-meaning and well-intended and have every intention of telling the complete truth, as I did when I was a child. I grew up in a small town of probably, at that point, I don't know what they are now. I think they're like 15,000, but they were probably 5 to 7,000 when I was a kid. I went to the police about the abuse I suffered. I was turned away because my biological father was friends with the chief of police in that small town, even though I had proof, had evidence, and all this stuff. Now, this was the mid-90s. Obviously, didn't have social media, didn't have a lot of stuff. But the point is, you don't know what you're going to get when you go to fill out a report. If you get an officer that's progressive-minded, they'll take your report and do their job. If you get an officer that wants to grill you and try and break you, you'll be asked questions for hours at a time. If you get an officer whom is, has an axe to grind or believes you brought it on yourself, they won't even take a report. I can name clients of mine that I know have been in domestic violence situations or abuse situations, and I walked them through the process through trauma recovery of actually going to their local police station and filing reports, and nothing was done. I can name at least 24 people that I know firsthand this has happened to. So partially when you say, why don't these individuals go forward, it's a 50-50 shot that going forward is going to do anything for anybody. Another thing to consider, I've heard a lot of how do we know that these men and women who are making the accusations are legitimate, that it's real, that they're not doing it for attention? Caveat, some of them might very well be. But a person's not going to make an accusation without having some form of a mental or emotional trauma that took place. And you're not going to pull someone out of the middle of nowhere that didn't do something improper somewhere along the way. In other words, if, for example, I have a friend named, Jessica, and Jessica makes a pass at me, I might see that as she harassed me. Now, I might use the word harassment when it was just one pass. However, if I was made to feel uncomfortable, there's truth in what I've said. And so, what I would say to people that are having difficulty because maybe one of your favorite wrestlers is being attacked or maligned, and you're like, I can't imagine this person doing that or whatever, it's, well, maybe they didn't do everything that was said, but they did something improper somewhere along the way to bring this out, unless a person is completely psychotic, which would be the other answer. This person's completely psycho. They need mental assistance. Okay, well, wait a minute. What made them psycho? Somewhere along the way, there is an impropriety of abuse there, and they 99% of the time aren't going to be pointing the finger at a random person. They're going to be pointing a finger at somebody they perceive did them something wrong. So even if the facts don't add up 100%, there is an original offense. And so it's important when we think about mental and emotional health to realize that coming forward isn't easy because you stand to lose bookings, you stand to lose money, you stand to lose credibility. Your family could find out, and if they think you might have done something to deserve it, or if they think you shouldn't have gotten into wrestling to begin with, and they use this as, see, here's why you never should have done this, this is dangerous business, and they mock you for it. Now, on top of that, we're talking about the change in the brain that happens with trauma and impulse control and other things. A person who has been severely abused is not going to have the same logic core as a person who's never been through trauma. So what I'm saying to you is there's rationalizations in their mind constantly around the clock of why they should go forward and equally why they shouldn't go forward, of why this is wrong, but they deserve it. And that duality of the struggle is a contributing factor to why many men and women would never go forward. Because part of it is, who's going to believe me? And even if they believe me, what's going to happen to that other person? And okay, this person goes to jail or this person gets charges. That doesn't mean that I'm going to feel any better. Now, for those that say, well, you're protecting somebody else. Yeah, but until it happens to you, you don't think it will happen to you. So you might be a talent or an actor or an actress or a wrestler or a sports star who thinks this will never happen to me, and then it does. And then you're in the unenviable position of, hey, I want someone to believe me. Well, I know Bob, and Bob would never do that. And so, now you've got your own teammates, your own locker room, whatever it is, against you, even though you have to deal with it every day and the trauma and the flashbacks and all the negativity of it. And you have to choose who you tell, and then you tell somebody and you deal with the 50-50. They may not believe you. So that's a myriad, not even to mention some people, when they go through trauma, literally block things out for an extended period of time until they're in a similar situation, or until they're in a situation where they feel comfortable, or until they're in a situation where somebody else says something that triggers a memory. There are people that literally go through this type of trauma who will have gaps of years where they don't even know what really happened to them. There are, in my own experiences, there are things about my past history of abuse that I'm still discovering, and I've been away from my abusers in complete total now for completely away more than 10 years, and I still have flashbacks of things that I wondered, did that really happen? And that's the other thing, your mind plays tricks on you. You actually start to believe that you don't know what the reality is about what happened to you. So, this has been a longer audio than I intended. I hope it's helpful for somebody. If you know somebody in the entertainment industry that's going through something like this, anything like this, please give them my contact information. I want to be able to help if I can. And it's not that I'm the only one that can help, but I don't see many people stepping forward and saying, let's give the victims an outlet of expression that's safe about recovery. We're supporting them in coming forward, which is great, But now that they've come forward, there's a whole other host of mental and emotional health issues that come with the relief but the fear. So you're relieved that you were honest, but you're fearful of what comes next. Anyway, something needs to change in the industry. Hopefully things get cleaned up, but I'm not that hopeful because at the end of the day, this is part of human nature. And if you really want to clean it up, I think every organization in professional wrestling should have access to mental health professionals for all talents that they as an organization will pay for. And I don't care if that means you're an independent and it means you can't run a show. If you have a talent who is dealing with mental health issues and you do nothing, it's the same as condoning whatever happens as a result of their issues. And that's a really strong point. But here's the thing. If you want to run a business, you have to protect your employees. This hobbyist mentality that is so perverse in the entertainment industry of, oh, it's just an opportunity. You should be lucky and happy just to be here. That BS gets so convoluted, and it really does kind of speak to a much larger manipulation in society that somehow we need to shame people for wanting to pursue their dreams in a weird way. And the last thing, for those, because there's going to be promoters that are going to backlash on this, and that's okay. And the promoters, oh, well, you've never been a promoter before, you don't know the financial stress. Nope. Have not been a full-time promoter, have helped promoters, have given ideas to promoters, have not taken that on myself completely. Hope to one day. That is one of my goals in life. But I haven't done it because I couldn't pay competitively. And competitively means actual pay that is commiserate with what someone's talents are worth and where they fit on your card and how much money they're drawing you. It does not mean, well, we give you $20. No. Because here's the thing, would you really want your son, your daughter, your mom, your dad, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, or whomever, your best friend, whomever it is, to risk their life for a hot dog and a handshake? Would you really want that? Probably not. But yet there's promoters everywhere, male and female, of all different sizes who do that every day. And that's why, really, it does fall on the fan community. It really, really does. It falls on the fan community to go, when I go to an independent show, when I go to, and I'm not picking on certain companies, but a Ring of Honor show or my local independent or a national company, where's my money going? When I buy a ticket, where's my money going? How much of it goes to the talent? How much of it goes to operating expenses? And how much of it goes to line that promoter's pocket? I guarantee you more goes into operating expenses and in the promoter's pocket than ever does to the talent. And I understand it costs thousands, if not millions of dollars, depending on your scale, to run a company. But if you can't pay your talent well, go home. Write a fantasy novel. Don't expect talent to take virtually no pay because you don't have business sense. I'm sorry, that's something that's been on my chest my entire time in the industry, and I will stand by that. And I think a lot of that has to do with why guys think, they can get away, and ladies think they can get away with this bad behavior. Oh, well, we're all desperate, so if they're desperate for opportunity, maybe they're desperate to get laid. Ugh. It's sick, it's sad, it's pathetic, and it needs to change. Anyway, comment below if you found any of this interesting, or if it's been helpful to anybody. Until next time, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment.